Okay, so last time I remembered talking about uh, the undiscovered world that the Jedi's in the cargo ship landed on, and they didn't actually take it too kindly to being on an exploration mission because they're not explorers. They don't explore. So they didn't like being on an unknown planet and finding out new information. In fact, they didn't think that made sense, even though it was in Knights of the Old Republic timeline before Ewoks were discovered. I had to remind them that Endor was actually an unknown world where they were discovering Ewoks for the first time. There was some argument about that. But anyways, so the group, there was a lot of dismay in the group, and it was kind of started to mutiny. And when the group mutinied, I realized I had to speed things up a bit. Pretty much the majority of the group just stopped playing, just like right off the bat. The bounty hunter who had been told to go wait in the ship just started doing push-ups, and then he went into my room. We were in the living room. He left and went into my room and then started playing with my Nintendo Wii. And so some cat person, someone who decided to be some sort of cat alien, decided to go and join him. So the majority of the group got disbanded, and then it just came down to just two Jedis, like a Jedi Guardian and a Jedi Counselor. And I guess the ship's pilot was still there. The ship's pilot was a Zabrak, Van Enoch, and he was trying to get laid with some Twi'leks. If you don't know what those are, they're like women with tentacles for hair, sort of. They're considered to be very attractive in the galaxy, even though he was a different species than them. And so they didn't like the exploration mission. And okay, so it was two Jedis, the ship's pilot, and an astromech droid that the ship's pilot won in a game of Pazaak. If you don't know what Pazaak is, it's a type of card game. And what the pilot didn't realize is the astromech droid he won actually had serial killer programming and was going to try and kill him. Just like the orphans, it would be killing later in the story, but we'll get to that later. So the first mission that they went on, that sort of took up all night, I think, was they had to go and investigate a serial killer. And so they were on Coruscant, which is where the Jedi's are based, and the Padawans were being sent. They already complained about having their Jedi Masters with them all the time, so the Padawans went off looking for the serial killer on their own by investigating nightclubs on Coruscant with their pilot and his astromech droid. And eventually, they investigate the bodies, and I don't want to go into the. I guess I said a lot of really gross stuff to us at the scene, like the bodies were a Twi'lek woman who were cut up, and the serial killer had left his seed in their open wounds. Yeah, so. Well, they tracked him down. They actually were able to sense who the serial killer was using the Force. And once they identified the serial killer, the astromech droid that was the serial killer programming, that's actually kind of funny that they were hunting a serial killer with a robot that was also a serial killer, or a droid. That's a technical term that the galaxy uses for robots, is droids. And the droid took some shots at the serial killer with blasters it had installed into itself. And its auto-targeting hardware was a lot more above average than any of the living players. And so the serial killer was suffering from a blaster wound because he got shot a couple times from an astromech droid at a nightclub, and the Jedi Counselor tracked him back to his apartment and accidentally cut off his head with a lightsaber, which I ended up getting in trouble for with the Jedi Council for killing the serial killer by decapitation, because the serial killer turned out to be the son of a very well-known politician. And he was actually just supposed to let it go because that politician's influence was so high that it actually allowed his son to go around killing Twi'lek stuff for his own pleasure. And the Jedi Padawans didn't know that, though, and they thought they were doing right and justice. This was set before the Mandalorian Wars. So they went on a few other runs later that sort of sums up that first session, which they loved killing that serial killer, But then they had a lot of difficulty trying to get involved in any other combat because they're supposed to just calm people down and stop violence from happening, which makes it really difficult to level up in Star Wars RPG if you're playing as light side Jedis. And so they went on another thing with more droids, and there was just some crazy guy that had a robot arm, that a spinning blade came out and a plasma torch, and he just wouldn't listen to reason and made all the saves against their effective mind, and just kept on swinging at him and had to destroy the droids that he had programmed to protect him, and that got them some XP. And then they had to go to Taris because there was some sort of outbreak of a disease in the lower layers of the Earth, where all the poor people are, underneath the stacks and layers of different cities, way all the way down to the bottom, where you're actually on the planet's crust now. And way down there where the poor people are, they were all breaking out in a disease. There was a lot of orphans there who were mutating into rak ghouls because a space corporation was testing out biological warfare weapons on poor orphan children because they couldn't defend themselves from the spacefaring corporation who needed to test out their biological mutagen weapons. And the undercity of all these poor people is getting overrun, and the astromech droid is just lighting orphan children on fire. It's got flamethrowers installed in his compartments, and they just open up and fire, just start shooting out fire and electricity, just lighting children on fire, and they're screaming, and he's just getting XP, and he's leveling up faster than anyone else, because he sees what's important once it's in a video game. How do you get more powerful quicker in Star Wars? Playing younglings, okay. So then, they build a wall around the last settlement that hasn't been fully mutated by the biological weapon mutagen thing, and then they just have to fend off waves and waves and waves of rak ghouls, and it's funny because the Force is so amplified in the game where it's basically like the Jedi are just unleashing just explosions of Force, knocking the rak ghouls down over and over again. And there was also like a bounty hunter thing where some mercenaries or bounty hunters or crime lords were after them, and they held up inside their ship and activated a bunch of self-defenses and planned everything out, and a door came down on a guy and killed him, and it was a lot of fun, but eventually war broke out, and Jedi Master Revan took it upon himself to be the general of the Republic's army, and would lead the Jedi forces and all of the military forces together against the Mandalorian threat, and we'll go into that next time.